Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody. It's me, Dr. Torie. I am here for another episode of Be Victorious. I love this. Of course, you guys know this. My guest here, she's amazing. She is an author. She is healing. She's amazing. She got a nice brief history. What I love is that she's representing Jamaica. I told you guys, ACEs is universal. But again, I'm sure you guys know that already. So without any further introduction, I would just love to bring Jim in. Hi, Jim. Come on in and say hello to us.
Hi, good evening. How are you all doing?
Blessed. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking.
No problem. I am excited that you're here because we've actually found out some wonderful things here within the past 10 minutes. You're visually impaired.
Yes, I am.
And what exactly happened?
Well, what transition in a short period of time in my life? It was during the time of my life when I was going through a lot of grief. I was on my way to the gym one day. Something splashed in my eye, like some um, kind of unclean water got into my eye. And when I got to the gym and I got in the space to wash and clean my face, I thought everything was okay.
Mhm.
But apparently it wasn't. And
Oh,
that was a trigger for underlying issues that was going on already, that it brought it to the surface. And so, you know, nothing never happened out of the box. It's always something that said, okay, boom, let's bring this to the surface so you can see what's going on.
right. How do you feel about it?
Sad. Um, I feel sad, um, insecure,
Hmm.
um, sad, just mostly sad and insecure.
But you
But
made it
there's
work for
always,
you. And I think that's the
yeah,
thing that needs to be celebrated because you're making this work for you. As an author, you're a reader. As an author, you're going out and you're speaking to all of these wonderful people and these guests and things, and you're actually making it work for you. So I say congratulations.
I say resilient.
I say
Um,
resilient too.
say resilient, not really strong, but resilient. And I think it comes from the culture of as a Caribbean woman,
Mhm.
where it doesn't matter what the world throw at us, we have to make it work.
Exactly.
And so, you know,
Very good. And you're making it work. We just did
yeah,
it. So congratulations.
thank you.
Now, we just did it because you found out your ACEs score. So what's your
Hmm.
ACEs score?
My sister scores a 10.
Okay. And I explained to you that there's nothing wrong with having an ACEs score of 10. You join a bunch of us that have an ACEs score. There's a young man out there by the name of Mick. He's from the United Kingdom and he embraces his 10. He actually created a whole Instagram. It's called the Perfect 10. I would encourage you to go. He has
Hmm.
really discovered, that this 10 isn't the stop of everything, it's the beginning of everything for him. So just wanted you to know there's nothing wrong with having a 10. You join us all in the ACEs realm of things. So welcome. What do you think? What do you think about adverse childhood experiences? When is the first time you've actually heard about it?
The first time I've heard about adverse childhood experiences is taking my psychology class at the Community College of Baltimore County
Yeah.
in human developmental psychology.
Mm-hmm. It's out there. It is out there. It's even more what I'm excited about is that they have a lot of updates that they have put out there because as you know, mental health is at an all-time high. But the thing is, this is your story. You actually have embraced the fact that you have a score of 10 and you've used that to your purpose. So tell us about you, about how you are an author and how you've changed, because I think your story is amazing.
Well, how I became an author, it was something that was already in me. So it was already something that was in my DNA.
Mhm.
So I don't think it's something that I became it. it was something that I had to bring to the surface.
And that's fine.
Um,
But what made you, because with you having a score of 10, something in your childhood or something happened to get you to motivate you to do what you're doing now?
it wasn't more so in my childhood, it was more so in my adulthood.
Okay.
Um, one of my professors, I was taking one of my professors at the school, he's a professor and a counselor. So
Hmm.
he was one of my counselor, and he begged me, I would love for you to join my class. And I'm like, I don't want to be one of your students because you know me, I'm opinionated and I always got something to say. And he said,
Right.
well, that's the reason why I want you to be a part of my class, it's the Africana study class.
Okay.
So with his adamant, I decided, okay, I'm going to join his class and see what this is all about. And in the class, of course, again, had all the opinions, but there was one student, he always wanted to challenge me to see who was the best poet in the class. And so, you know, we would have battles after class every day, and the professor was the judge. So as I moved forward into my studies of psychology, because these was remedial classes,
Hmm.
um, I did some essays. The professor that I had, Dr. Chandler, an amazing professor who always, you know, prompt us to be ourselves. We're not going to give you any topics to write about. I just want for you to follow the writing protocol. And so that brought out my creativity. So I ran to the professor and I said, hey, listen, look at my story, what I wrote. I got an A. And he was like, Gem, you're really great at writing. Why don't you just write a book? And it was not like it's something I never heard before. So around that time, I was in this very toxic relationship with this young man where I was more of the asserter and he was more of the introvert. Um, so I would suppress my emotions by wearing makeup and dressing up to pretend like nothing was going on. So, you know, when I come to school, I was always looking nice and fresh, but I was hiding so much trauma.
Mm.
And so everybody thought I was well put together and nothing wasn't wrong. So one day he just couldn't take any more of my personality. He said, why can't you just be the damsel in distress? And I said, what is he talking about? You know? So of course we all do when we don't understand something, we jump to Google. So I jumped on Google and look up Google, what is a damsel in distress? And Google said it's a woman who's always in a position of needing help, who always in a distressful position.
Mm.
I said, well, that's sick. Why would you want for me to be in this position? So of course I went to my professor because you know a professor is like your hero.
Hmm.
So I ran to my professor, Dr. Chandler. He said that he wanted me to be the damsel in distress, and he said, "Well, Collie, it's because he wants to save you." And I'm like, "Save me from what? I'm always here needing to be saved, but because of the way I presented my trauma, I looked like I was already together, and I thought I was showing it, but to him, he needed to feel wanted."
Mm.
And I didn't understand that because at the time I didn't understand myself. I wasn't as aware as I thought I was.
Right.
Anyway, I started to ponder upon the Inquisition of why can't you just be a damsel in distress? And so I thought about it. I said, well, a damsel is in distress because of her own dysfunctionality. It's because of her own mind. She's the one that is causing her distress mode. And until she become aware of this, she will continue to be in distressful mode. So I made it a Facebook topic one day, and then next thing I know, I wrote it down. Next thing I know, I keep writing about it. Next thing I know, I'm writing a book. Next thing
Hmm.
I know, this book is talking to me. And I don't know what's going on. I don't understand. I'm hearing instructions from the book telling me what to do. And I'm like, this book is so greedy. This book is so controlling and manipulative. It's telling me, you don't need to go to school. You don't need any friends. It's all about me. Just write this book. And so, ironically, I was taking a detective class and I ran to one of my professors, and she, ironically, was also writing her book as well
Hmm.
um, on detective work. So I told her, she's like, okay, that's great. And she started guiding me. She was excited. So she took me to my first book signing with her friends that were all detectives and psychologists on the platform. So of course I wanted my professor to look good. So I asked the question, hey man, listen, is there anyone else hearing voices in your head? I'm writing this book and I'm hearing the voices, this book telling me what to do, and this book is being so controlling and is guiding me what to do. Is anyone else have ever experienced this? And so their mouths were gaped open and their eyes popped from their heads and were saying, well, that's a great place for you to be in. Every author would love to be in that place.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, what? Mental illness? Because that's what this is, madness. Of course, I kept on pursuing and pour out my heart into this book. There were days where when I was pouring out so much of my trauma that I was weak. I couldn't hold myself up because I was pouring my entire self into this book.
Mm-hmm.
Writing the book gave me an enlightenment about what I thought was and who I thought I was. It gave an highlight for me to understand that when you thought that your friends dysfunctionality was different from yours, they were exactly the same. It was just being expressed differently. So I finished writing the book, The Damsel in Distress, Coping with Emotional Codependency Personality Disorder. At the time, I went to the professor again and asked, is emotional codependency in the DSM? And he said, it actually isn't a disorder. I said, well, you know what? I got the power to define. I'm going to make it what it is. And I said, I'm going to name it The Damsel in Distress, Coping with Emotion. Again, there's levels to understanding.
Uh-huh.
And again, I thought I was understanding what I was writing, but it was bigger than me. Didn't even understand that I was a student to my own work.
Right.
Teaching is intensified learning.
It is.
So I became the student and the teacher at the same time. Because what I was writing about in the book was slewing the dragon in myself, in my culture, the childhood trauma that I was experiencing, constantly experiencing, that was deemed as normalcy, that was deemed as something that acceptance, the epigenetics of dysfunctionality in my culture that was accepted. So me writing about this traumatic demon, when I mean by demon, I mean in the dysfunctionality that's happening for those who might not understand what I'm saying. Next thing I know, a week later after publishing the book and having my first book signing, I'm in my bedroom in the apartment writing The War in the Heavens, Breaking the Chains of Generational Curses.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it was a whole different thing. So now I had to write about the trauma of how did this dysfunctionality happen in our family bloodline? How did it begun? Where did it stem from? And so from that, I understand that this not necessarily that they were attacking me. This is a system that they were created into. They themselves don't even know that they're dysfunctional.
Now, when you're
So
saying they, who are you talking about?
I'm talking about the culture that I was brought up in as a Caribbean woman, as a
Okay.
West Indian woman. We don't know that we're dysfunctional because we're living in a survival mode,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And when you're stuck in survival, you can't see nothing past that. You don't see dysfunctionality.
Right.
So, granted, I was blessed, or I am blessed, to have the opportunity to break generational dysfunctionality, as you say, adverse childhood, who shows up at these different titles in psychology. I
Mm-hmm.
am blessed to do that because 10 generations before, they never had that opportunity to talk about breaking these dysfunctionalities and healing from them because they were surviving it,
Right.
you
So,
know?
let me share what you are is you're a survivor. Congratulations. You've used this book to help you understand the generational trauma that you talked about, the adverse childhood experiences you talked about, everything that has happened. So congratulations to you. What
You.
you're saying is from one book led you to write another book, and this book is the book that talked about breaking the breaking generational curses and the adverse childhood experiences and things of that nature. Tell me about the second book.
This is the second book. The War in the
Okay,
Heavens, Breaking the Chains of Generational Curses.
that's the name of it. Okay, because I
Hmm.
wanted to make sure you have two books out right now.
Yes, I do.
The first book is the book that led to this book right here. And this is
Yeah,
the book that gives the understanding to the Caribbean culture about addressing your traumas, addressing the adverse childhood experiences and things of that nature, correct?
right. They both do. But yes, one just go deeper. One is, this is what it happened. This is why it happened. And the one is, this is how you come forward out of it. This is what it looks like.
You know what I mean? Because again, adverse childhood experiences doesn't have a face, it doesn't have a name, it doesn't have anything. And the great thing is, you coming from the Caribbean culture, you just placed it to where people can understand how it actually is effective and how it impacts the Caribbean culture. And congratulations, you just explained it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know you got a little frustrated, but see, understand, we're saying the same thing. The thing is, we have a different way of, and every culture is different. This is the reason why I continue to educate and do what I do, so people can grasp on to the educational aspect of it. Your book is an educational tool. Do you use it in schools yet?
It is in the school libraries. They are in the school libraries. They are in the school bookstores. But I'm
Which
trying to
school?
push for it. This great question. Thank you. The University of Maryland, Baltimore County, the University of Towson State University, Howard State University, John Hopkins State University, Loyola State University, Morgan State University, the Community College of Baltimore, Community College of Baltimore County. Um,
And we will be able to go and look and find this book and use this as a tool to help us understand the Caribbean culture in regards to breaking generational curses.
Not just the Caribbean culture, but the African diaspora. And not just the African diaspora, it's a universal thing because generational curses is not specific to a culture. The whole universe is traumatized.
It
You know,
is
it just shows up differently for each culture.
very
Because
good.
for one culture, trauma, your trauma might be a blessing for one culture.
Exactly.
So if in your culture, you were the slave and I'm the master, so that's my blessing.
You're right.
You know, but in your culture, it's dysfunctional. I mean, it is both dysfunctional, but it serves a purpose in each culture.
Let's go. Mhm.
Hmm.
And that's the purpose. And this is the purpose of this podcast, to show people that it has no, ACEs doesn't have a culture. It doesn't have anything. It's universal.
Universal.
And what you just said was all of that in a bag of chips, because you are correct. And it's different in the eye of the beholder. In this culture, those questions could have been different. Your score was a 10, which means you basically addressed all the different categories, from the physical to the emotional to the household dysfunction to the physical and the emotional neglect, correct?
Absolutely. What
Okay.
I understand when, if you don't mind, what I understand, what I am coming and have came to understand,
Mhm.
and I'm still coming to understanding again because it's a process,
Mhm.
and there's layers and levels to it to understanding. But what
Very.
I'm coming to understand with understanding childhood trauma
Mhm.
is that even though it shows up this way for me, it can be showing up the same way for you, and this is the reason why I'm even attracted to you.
Right.
It's a humbling process when you become aware of it,
Right.
and you're less to be angry. For example, the gentleman that is in my life, we butt head, and he said to me, "There's no one else in my life that I have the friction with
Hmm.
but you." And I said, "Because pressure bust pipe. You having friction with me because I have to challenge your way of thinking and you're not used to that. If someone does not come into the room and say this room doesn't smell good, everybody's going to think it smells okay. But because I am challenging that, they said, hey, listen, it don't smell good in here. It's a problem for you, but it's not even really you that is having the problem. It's the dysfunctionality in your mind that is being challenged, and it doesn't like that.
Wow.
So when I begin to work on those mother wounds, those father wounds, and being able to address them and understand them, I said, oh, so this is how it's showing up for me. That's the reason why he's behaving that way.
Good.
This is the why he's behaving that way. So it gets me to understand, okay, it's not that he doesn't want to communicate with me. In his subculture growing up, communication was not accepted in certain kind of way. In
Now,
his subculture,
and not to interrupt you, because you're getting this is getting good. As far as your culture, how were you raised? Was it that you could do the things that you're doing now, and talking to him about, his culture and embracing culture? Do you all accept a different culture in your Caribbean culture? Like, just give me a little bit about that, because if somebody's coming into the culture and they don't know about it, how do they adapt? How do they know?
well, typically in the Caribbean, even if it's another Caribbean island, and it's one of the Caribbean sisters, it's a Jamaican sister. It's like, what are you dealing with them Antiguans? So you're gonna leave us Jamaican man and go with the Antigua? What kind of idiot thing that there's no other Jamaican man here? They're gonna challenge it, of course. And if it's an Antiguan, why are you going with the Jamaicans? It's a Beijing, you go with them Jamaicans, them Jamaicans. So and then it's even worse when it's someone else in another part of the African diaspora. Why are you going with the Yankee boy?
So
So
how do they, in the Jamaican culture or in the African diaspora, how do they view physical abuse? Is it accepted?
Almost
Is it not?
physical abuse, it depends, because it depends on the level of education.
Okay.
But the less a person or a culture is educated, the more acceptable or the less acceptable some things are going to be. So in the lower parts, where in the Caribbean, how it is set up, the system is set up is the have and the have nots. There's no in between.
Wow.
So those who have not will think differently about something, where those who have will think differently. So those who don't have or are not more exposed to education, or not exposed to a contrast, compare and contrast, would deem it as, oh, your boyfriend beat you up. That's what you're supposed to get. This is supposed to happen to you. That's because him love you, and you're supposed to respect him, and he's supposed to slap you. He's supposed to abuse you.
Is that
So
okay in the Caribbean culture?
in the place where they have not, where there's less education and there's less compare and contrast, this functionality is accepted as normalcy.
Oh, wow.
The place where there's more exposure to education, more exposure to different culture, where there's a compare and contrast, this functionality is looked upon as, this is not acceptable.
Wow.
So the more educated they are, or the more educated a person is universally, the less they accept this functionality as normalcy. And that's what we're happening in the world now. People are becoming more enlightened to what things are supposed to be and what they're not supposed to be. There's a
Right.
compare and contrast. So we don't necessarily have to physically step out of our culture to compare and contrast. Now we can go on TikTok and see what this look like. Hey, somebody's not supposed to slap you. Nobody's supposed to touch you right there.
Right.
This is not what it is. But it's a system against that we're fighting against in the Caribbean,
Oh, wow.
where a lot of, yeah, and it's been like that for decades. But now it's more exposure. People are getting more exposed,
Very good.
to certain things. So the more
And that's the
educated
reason why
they
you're a hero, because you're writing about
are.
it, right?
Yes, it takes a lot. It's
Because
very bold.
your book is this book that talked to you. This is the book that said these are the things that are not okay. These are the things that need to be addressed. One book led to you creating another book. And that book, tell me the name of that book one more time.
The War in the Heavens, breaking the chains of generational curses.
This is what you're doing. Congratulations.
It
You
it it, it
breaking generational curses. Congratulations.
It is breaking them because now my father's family, they're disconnected from me. They were
Yes.
okay with the first book. They were
Yes.
okay. We had a family meeting to get to know everyone, and I didn't know that I was coming into a nest of professors and doctors and lawyers.
Mhm.
And when I came, they asked me to introduce myself. You know, who's my dad and etc. And I introduced myself. Um, when I introduced myself and I said I'm a student of the University of Maryland, psychology student, and I wrote about the war in the heavens breaking the chains of generational curses. The generations before me got uncomfortable
Of course.
in their seat. You could see it in the Zoom meeting. Some logged out of the meeting,
Wow.
but the generations that were under me, yeah, Jem, yes, yes. Please, I'm glad you're writing this book because there's a lot of dysfunctionality going on in Jamaica, and we need to talk about the mental the mental illness in Jamaica because we look at it as normal. So yes, Jem, this is actually what's going on. And when my cousin said made that statement, it ruffled feathers in the group, and they ended the meeting immediately. And that was the last time they connected with me.
So you haven't connected with your dad's side of the family since the book.
Since then, no, no,
Now, I have another personal question. Do you have children?
I do not have children as of yet.
Okay, but you will. Okay, it's gonna happen because you're breaking generational curses. Let's speak.
Yes, because I didn't want to try to raise myself while raising my children and parent my parent at the same time.
Wow.
Because I would have given them my dysfunctionality and thought that it was okay. I'm learning now as I'm growing how to even be feminine. What does femininity look like? And this is coming from the relation that I have with this gentleman, where I was in his space and he said to me, I don't want for you to do nothing. I just want for you to focus on your schoolwork. I got everything.
Now,
And I was
is his background from the Caribbean?
no, they're Native American and Native American and Cuban. Yes, technically, yeah, the Caribbean because Native American and Cuban.
Okay.
But he's raised in New York, so he
Different.
has understanding of Caribbean culture. Yeah, he has
Right.
understanding. But they're different dynamics.
It is.
So
So he wanted to treat
I
you like a queen,
and I'm
and
like, no, I'm used to being the king.
I got it. I got
So
it now. It makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
and when he said that I had a little resentment, I had a silent resentment against him telling me to operate in my femininity because I didn't know what that looked like, because I didn't know what safe people
Right.
could. A woman cannot operate in her femininity if she's not safe.
And that's so true. I'm glad you brought it up because you're learning. So basically what you're saying is between the two books, you're still learning about yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm still discovering myself. So
Very
him
good.
telling me to operate, I just want for you to do, I'm not used to this. I'm used to giving. I'm not used to receiving. And in the Hebrew philosophy, it is called zakah nikivah, which means the give and the take, right? So when you're giving, that's a masculine trait. To
Right.
receive is a feminine trait. So I'm used to operating in my masculinity. I'm
Yeah.
used to being the giver. I'm not used to receiving. But even though I wanted to receive, I wasn't used to that.
I
And he
learned
would say to
something
me,
today. This is
once
good.
more, please.
No, this
Yeah,
is good. I mean, this is the reason why we have this podcast. This is the reason why you're here. Because it gives people a different outlook on exactly the different cultures, the different things. I'm in the United States, born and raised. I have no clue about the Caribbean culture, but I've learned something today. I've learned a lot
mm-hmm.
today. This is the reason why we have this is an educational podcast. It helps people understand their adverse childhood experiences. I wanted to make sure that I connect that. So that's the reason why I asked you to do your ACEs score so you get connected and do that. And you've done that. You've talked about your Caribbean culture. You've talked about the reason why you wrote your book. I love how you talked about the fact that the second book gave you disconnect from your dad's side of the family. And I also love that you are still learning about yourself. You are what we call a cycle breaker in the United States. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm still going forward. And as I push on, this gentleman, normally when triumphs happen, I run. And he would stand still no matter how many times I run and I come back, I run and I come back, he was always there.
Okay.
And I said to him one day, I love you being a leader. I don't mind being submissive and for you to lead. And I want for you to take the wheel. And he said, how can I take the wheel, Jem, when you're always moving the vehicle? And this relationship is causing me to not just stand up to the relationship, but stand up to myself.
Very good.
There have been so many external voices telling me, leave because it's not showing up in this way in their dysfunctionality.
Right.
Because we can only advise a person according to the level of awareness we have in our own self, as far as our awareness have gone.
Wow.
And so, even when I break the generational curses, I'm also breaking the generational cycles with the type of friends I have.
Mm.
Because breaking those curses are going to require for you to show up differently. It's going to require a whole nother level of you, another whole level of responsibility and accountability.
You are
So
correct.
that means I'm going to have to disconnect from this friendship, the wheat and the tare. They're going to have to be some time of separation.
Now, I
And it
have a
can be
question for
painful.
you. You talked about your dad and you talked about the mother wound. How's your relationship with your mother?
Not a good one.
Okay.
Not a good one.
So you're pretty much disconnected from your dad and
Both sides. Yeah. Um,
the new exposure is the new found boyfriend that you have.
yes.
Okay.
Man, yes, man.
I'm just trying to make it make sense to all of us and catch on because again it's different, it's a different culture, and I want to make sure that not only if I understanding that our listeners are listening and they're understanding as well, which is the reason why I keep repeating stuff, if that makes sense. So
Right, right.
yes, I understand it. Really, I get it. I love that you're a cycle breaker. I love that you're doing this on your own because you saw a need for change. So congratulations.
It's thank you. It's pretty bold.
It is.
It causes you to question yourself.
Mhm.
It causes you to have Stockholm syndrome, which is dysfunctionality.
Right.
It causes you to want to continue to pledge allegiance to your dysfunctionality. What I understand is that
What I want you to stop doing though is making it sound like it's something wrong when it's actually nothing wrong with it at all. I think that's the thing that I've been trying to share with people. For adverse childhood experiences, me growing up, I didn't know what it was at all. They finally came up with the term. They have never really updated it. There's been a lot of people that have, but here since June, there's been this normalcy. It encompasses so many other things like community violence, mass shootings, bullying, cyberbullying. It encompasses so much more, which normalizes the term to where people can understand it a lot more. And you being from the Caribbean culture and you being an author and you writing this and people sharing this is going to give people that opportunity to know how your culture is and how you, as the cycle breaker, used your books to help break that generational cycle and understand your ACEs according to your ACEs score.
the thing about the understanding of it is when you're able to put a title to things,
Mm-hmm.
when you're able to say adverse childhood trauma,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't know that was.
Mm-hmm.
And what came to my mind as I said this was body dysphoria in the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
Body dysphoria is from a skin bleaching,
Mm-hmm.
and they bleach their skin because again we're separated into two different class, the have and the have nots.
Right.
So they bleach their skin in order to be accepted in society. The
Mm-hmm.
lighter your skin is, the more you're accepted into the society. So I'm going against so many odds. I'm a dark skinned woman from the Caribbean, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm writing these type of books. How dare you, Gem?
But guess what? You did it. And you need to be commended for that. And I want to congratulate you right now for doing
Give
that.
thanks.
Because
Thank
you
you.
did it. And guess what? You just told us your books are everywhere. I'm going to get, of course, this information, all of the information so we can share. Tell us where, like, tell us about your website. Tell us about where we can find you, because I think this is important.
You can find me on Instagram as GEMBOUKS _LLC, pronounced Gem Books, www.gembooks.org, and as Facebook and TikTok, Gem Books _LLC.
And see, I didn't know you was on TikTok. I'm gonna have to go find you on TikTok.
So
It's been my pleasure. I learned so much from you within this hour. Oh my God, you're amazing. Thank you so
thank you.
much for being here. And again, it for me, my people know where to find me. I am everywhere. I am Dr. VicTORIEus on Instagram, Dr. VicTORIEus on Facebook. I'm VicTORIEus on TikTok. I am on Twitter. I am everywhere. You guys, this was a great educational episode about learning the Caribbean culture with an amazing author. We thank you so much for being here, you guys. Thank you guys again, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye for now.